Hello Summoner! In this series of videos we'll talk about Darius. Darius is the general of an elite Noxian military unit, the Trifarian Legion, and a member of Noxus's ruling council, the Triferix. He is a classic example of the fighter class. He lacks any tools for fast travel, but if he manages to reach his target, they are most likely doomed. Darius is very powerful in the laning stage because of his passive ability and built-in self-healing, which suggests an aggressive playstyle and constantly pressing the opponent. He has a high duel potential and great team fighting. In the right hands he can turn around fights of 1 vs 2 and even 1 vs 3 thanks to his passive Q and R. His E allows him to have melee champions and low distance ranges in constant fear, as getting face to face with Darius isn't a fun time for most champions of the league. This champion doesn't require any exceptional mechanical abilities to play, but to master him you'll have to play dozens or even hundreds of matches. In this guide, we'll look into basics, as well as fine points of different matchups and combinations. Hemorrhage is Darius' passive ability. By hitting targets with the edge of his axe, auto attacks, the outer range of Q, W and R, Darius inflicts them with a status effect that deals damage periodically for 5 seconds, which stacks up to 5 times. If a champion gets 5 stacks of Hemorrhage or dies from Noxian Guillotine, R skill, Darius gets Noxian Might, which gives his strength a significant boost for 5 seconds. Also, while Noxian Might is active, Darius inflicts targets with 5 stacks of Hemorrhage at once. Decimate, Darius' Q skill, is a circular strike with a half-second delay that deals damage to all affected enemies. This skill has 2 effect ranges, outer and inner. Enemies caught into the outer range, that is the blade, receive full damage and the stack of the passive. The ones caught into the inner range, that is the handle, only take 35% damage and no hemorrhage. More than that, Darius restores 12% of health lost for each enemy champion hit with the blade, up to 36% in all. Crippling Strike, Darius' W skill, strengthens the next auto attack. The buffed auto attack deals increased damage and slows the target by 90% for 1 second. If Crippling Strike kills the target, its cooldown is halved, and Darius gets a mana refund. Apprehend, Darius' E skill, drags all enemies in a narrow cone towards Darius and slows them by 45% for 1 second. Also, this skill passively improves armor penetration. Noxian Guillotine, Darius' R skill, is a directed skill with a small range that deals true damage to the enemy champion. Damage increases by 20% for each stack of Hemorrhage on the target. If the target dies, Darius gets Noxian Might and an opportunity to use the skill again without spending mana within 20 seconds. At rank 3, the skill costs 0 mana and successful executions instantly recharge it. As we mentioned earlier, Darius is a classic bruiser. His goal in the game is to absorb damage and return it. Like any member of this class, he has a range of pros and cons, so let's take a look at the most relevant of them. Pros. One of the strongest top laners in early game, equally effective against most top lane champions. Good team fighting in mid game thanks to huge built-in sustain and damage. Darius is a reset champion. If he manages to proc his passive and reset his ultimate, he is capable of turning the tides in the blink of an eye. Cons. Darius is completely immobile, making him extremely weak against champions and items that inflict slow. If his flash is on cooldown, he literally becomes a punching bag. Besides, it makes him weak to well-planned ganks. Like any bruiser, Darius loses his relevance closer to late game, making long games harder to win. And finally, Darius depends a lot on hitting with his Q's outer radius. If the enemy smartly plays around this skill, Darius' effectiveness in battle drops significantly. In the end, we've got a strong but slow early mid-game fighter with good sustain and damage, so what team setups are good for him? The most fitting setup is of course the classic teamfight composition. However, if the enemy team doesn't have a strong duelist, Darius can take on the role of a split pusher. He also fits setups with 2 supports, combinations like Lulu Ivan or Lulu Karma, because such setups dominate the middle phase of the game, where Darius is at his best. The most fitting allies for him would be the following champions: Zac, Sejuani, Ivan, Hecarim as jungler, Orianna, Cassiopeia, Karma, Lulu, Lissandra, Veigar, Zilean as mid laner, Jinx, Sivir, Ashe, Miss Fortune as ADC, Karma, Lulu, Sona, Rakan, Nami, Thresh, Alistar, Morgana or Zilean as support. As you can see, these are the champions that can either initiate a fight from a distance or speed up Darius so he can hit the enemy with his E. Theory. There are several options for Darius' summoner spell choice. The first and most popular one is Flash plus Teleport. Flash partly compensates Darius' low mobility and lets him reach targets that would otherwise be unreachable. Teleport, on the other hand, is required to quickly get into a fight on the other side of the map, to contest objects, to flank in teamfights, and to use the one fights maximally effective. However, if the team cooperates badly, or if you are simply not sure about teammates and want to take the situation in your hands, you may think of replacing Teleport with Ignite or Ghost. This will deprive you of your global mobility, but it will allow you to play better during the laning phase and short skirmishes. Ignite is for cases when you intend to completely destroy your opponents in the top. 5 stacks of the passive and well-timed Ignite can bring you an easy kill and an early advantage. However, by taking it, you must realize that if you get suddenly ganked, you are risking to lose a lot of experience and gold, and besides, one of your towers could be in danger. Ghost is for matchups where the enemy can easily escape from you without using Flash, Riven for instance. Bonus movement speed may help you catch the sprinter and grind him into dust. Ghost can also help you avoid a gank and, unlike Ignite, doesn't become obsolete in mid-game. Against immobile enemy setups, a combo of Ghost plus Teleport might work, but you might regret the lack of Flash 1,000 times, so choose wisely. The choice of runes and talents mostly depends on your lane rival, though it may vary to fit your team's setup. With patch 8.6 and the addition of the rune Conqueror, the precision tree has become Darius' dominant choice in solo queue. Conqueror perfectly fits into Darius' fighter skill set, adding to his deficient damage in teamfights, turning part of his damage into true damage. The other precision runes are default for a fighter: Triumph, Legend Alacrity or Legend Tenacity against teams with control, and also Coup de Grace. The secondary tree in this case is usually Resolve. Bone Plating and Second Wind help Darius survive on the lane against champions with high poke damage. In simple matchups, the runes Demolish and Conditioning help you control the lane more confidently. Although in difficult matchups where you need extra sustain on the lane, you should take the Resolve tree with Grasp of the Undying as the keystone. This keystone works well against tanks and other bruisers, as extra damage and sustain make you feel more comfortable in long trades, where Darius is hard to deal with as he is. For the first slot, choose between Demolish and Bone Plating. If you are playing against a tank, Maokai for example, then extra durability won't do much good. For a comfortable laning phase, the sustain from Q will be enough. But bonus damage to a tower can help you get FB from it, because in such matchups you will often push your opponent and, if you know the position of the enemy jungler, you will be proccing Demolish practically in time with a cooldown. Though if you are playing against another bruiser or a poking champion, Bone Plating will decrease the damage you take and will help to perform trades in your favor. For the second slot, we again choose between Conditioning in simple matchups and Second Wind against champions with poke damage. For the third slot, choose between Overgrowth and Unflinching. Neither of these talents are really impressive, but Unflinching is pretty good against hard controlling setups. If combined with Legend Tenacity, Mercury's Treads and Elixir of Iron, this talent makes you pretty much immune to control, while your summoner spells are on cooldown. Overgrowth is only taken in cases when the enemy team has little to no control. The secondary tree in this case is Precision. A slight boost to AS will let you stack the passive on your enemies quicker, and, well, AD on a champion who scales exclusively from AD is never excessive. Triumph can help you survive in teamfights and skirmishes, and Legend Tenacity will prevent your enemies from constantly having you in chain, stuns, roots and slows. In cases when the enemy pick implies little control, you can take Coup de Grace, Legend Alacrity or Last Stand. Last Stand works very well on Darius, as you will constantly be wounded and your health level won't rise above 30 to 40% in fights. There is a third keystone option, Phase Rush. If you are playing against a melee champion who prefers short trades because of their high mobility, for example Fiora or Riven, it may be wise to make a page of Sorcery plus Resolve or Precision. Phase Rush will allow you to stick to a target and start a long trade, in which you are stronger a priori. And in teamfights, it will significantly weaken the slowdown at the start of a fight and will not let the enemy kite you. In this case, take the Nullifying Orb in the main tree, if there are AP damages, or the Ultimate Hat, Transcendence and Gathering Storm, and in the secondary tree, depending on the situation, as mentioned before. The order of leveling skills depends on the matchup on top lane. In any case, the first level goes to Q because if you manage to start a fight at level 1, it will help you get the stacks and proc the passive faster, which will mean a profitable trade and maybe a wasted flash or even an easy first blood if the opponent gets carried away. On the second level, take E against rangers and cautious opponents, or Q against tanks and bruisers. Max out the Q first, then it depends on the situation. If the enemy team has 2 or more tanks and the carries are building early armor, like Ninja Tabby, max out E for penetration. In other cases, max out W to decrease cooldown and increase damage. So that's all for now, see you in the next episode.